Again, welcome to St. Matthew's Parish in Windham, New Hampshire. As I mentioned, this is the 8th Respect Life series, sponsored by the Knights of Columbus, Council 7572. Please refer to your pamphlets. We do have the speaker list on the back all the way through October. And we also have a section for notes that everybody can take during the talk today. And I want to thank Tom Frank for coming and giving us a wonderful pro-life mass today. It was fantastic to have him come and join us. And I also want to acknowledge Ron DeStasio here from the Knights of Columbus, who's also in the pro-life movement and part of the director of our pro-life program as well. And he is having an annual pro-life seminar which is going to be on March 22nd at St. Joseph Cathedral Church Hall. And actually Darlene's going to be talking there as well, so that's fantastic. We will have extra pamphlets for everybody at the end of the talk today. Now for our featured speaker. She is a practicing nurse that has worked in pro-life ministry for over 20 years. Speaking publicly about her personal experience as a child born from rape, she is passionate about the value of every human life, regardless of how they come into the world, and has served as a trustee, president of New Hampshire Right to Life, and is the chair of the Educational Trust, and serves with Save the One to bring awareness to legislators and the public that people conceived from rape are people, not exceptions. Please help me in welcoming Darlene Pawlik.
Thank you everybody for having me. I can be heard quite well with this mic, huh? Tonight I'm going to talk about personhood. Personhood is a little bit of a funny term because we have corporate personhood in the United States, and there's a lot of disinformation and a lot of misinformation about personhood. I actually took a quote from Roe v. Wade that I'd like to start to open with, just to give you a reason for thinking about personhood. It says, the appellee and certain amici, that means friends of the court, argue that the fetus is a person within the language and meaning of the 14th Amendment. In support of this, they outline at length and in detail the well-known facts of fetal development. If this suggestion of personhood is established, the appellant's case, of course, collapses. This was written by the judge concerning Roe v. Wade in 1973. This was specific to abortion at that time. But now, so much has changed. Personhood is even more important. It's just as important to those preborn babies as it ever was, but now it's as important for me and for you, for disabled people, for anybody, because ethicists believe that there should be criteria for personhood, that it's not just from conception that you're a person because you're a person. They ignore Imago Dei. They ignore the fact that we are created in the very image of God, that it is His image that's within us, that is what makes us a person and what gives us value. In the ethicist point of view, there are various criteria. One is being aware of their surroundings. It can be argued that prenatal development at some point allows for this. We've seen ultrasounds where babies are pulling away from sounds or pulling away from a needle in a syringe that's been inserted to take amniotic fluid. In various times we've seen preborn babies respond to their environment. So there is an argument for that, but when does that happen? That's very arbitrary, in my opinion. And even in the fact that newborn babies can be said to not have that situational awareness. They don't know what's going on. People think they're dull and they don't know that mommy's mommy or whatever. And then there's also, of course, the disabled. Any babies with fetal anomaly or deficits in their mental capacity would be excluded from personhood. There again, we have all kinds of people that would be excluded, including the very well brought up 9-year-old who gets in a diving accident. He went under the water, and now he's in a coma. He can be denied personhood under this criteria. Your mother with dementia or Alzheimer's, also, is she really aware of what's going on around her? Some would argue she's not, and therefore could be denied personhood. This is a very, very scary, slippery slope that we're on. There are other criteria for other people, like physical development. So they say the egg is just an egg. I mean, a fertilized egg even is just an egg. It's not a person. They use the criteria about quickening, which is 16 to 18 weeks. So even though a baby has fingerprints and all of its organs, and it has everything that it needs except for time to grow and finish maturing at about 10 to 12 weeks, they say it's not till quickening, not till the mom can feel the baby moving, that baby should be allowed personhood. Others, like Mr. Singer, who's a professor in ethics, says that we should wait till they're about 2 years old to really see if we decide they're a person. And he bases his on all kinds of crazy, arbitrary criteria too. He wants them to have not only situational awareness, but object permanence, and be able to have a sense of self and a sense of others, and it's much broader. This is a very dangerous thing. Like I said, if you're disabled, whether it's by an accident or by your development, and maybe it's a disease process, this is a very, very dangerous thing to be thinking about. And then there's cognitive functions. Like I said with Mr. Singer, he wants us to be very cognitively able. He even went to the point of saying that a chimpanzee could be more of a person than a disabled child. This is horrific when it comes to what we know here. We're in a church, so we can say this. We believe that we are made in the very image of God, that He stamped on us His image, so that when we're brought forth, we have an opportunity to commune with Him and to be with Him and to love Him and to serve Him. And that is our purpose for being here. He created every single one of us for that purpose. And when we destroy that, we're robbing Him of the thing that He created the highest, the crescendo of all of His creation. Every single person is someone that He cherishes, He wants. Even if they are disabled, it's somebody that He created. When we talk about personhood, we're talking about giving rights to everyone from conception to natural death, regardless of their level of development, their manner of conception, their degree of dependency. So some people argue that, well, a fetus would have more rights than the mom then, because you can't deny them the right to life without due process, and you can't take anything from them, according to the 14th Amendment. Those are rights of personhood. So when we convey personhood onto that preborn baby, they think that's going to trump the mother's right, only in respect to her not being able to kill that child, only in respect to the right to life for that child. There's some crazy ideas that women would be prosecuted for miscarrying. That's disinformation. There's a lot of misinformation. That's disinformation. Misinformation is kind of making it sound like it's not right. Disinformation is intentional lies. That's a lie. It's not true. All we're talking about is giving protection for the right to life for that child. Now, they say, well, fetal anomalies shouldn't be in that mix. All we're talking about is not intentionally killing the child. We're not talking about having to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars and loads of equipment to keep this child alive artificially for any length of time or for any reason. We are talking about not intentionally killing another person, whether it's a preborn baby with fetal anomaly or an elderly woman with dementia. Same. We're not talking about the state being responsible for anything but providing for protection for them not to have their lives taken from them without due process. And of course, we know due process to be a trial, jury trial, and for a crime according to our statutes. Of course, no baby, preborn or born, has ever been able to be prosecuted that way. Other people are concerned about IVF, in vitro fertilization, to test tube babies. They say, well, you'd be outlawing IVF, and this is just unacceptable. What about people who need IVF? Well, it wouldn't necessarily outlaw IVF at this point, because Pandora's box has been open. There's probably about 3,000 snowflake babies that were discarded or frozen right now, and they need adoption. There are babies to be adopted that are still in a frozen state. They're not really frozen, because then they'd be dead, but we call it frozen because they're suspended and they're developing extremely slowly. But what happened with IVF is their technology got so good that now they only make enough babies to implant. They're not making throwaway babies anymore. So that argument is moot at this point in time. Previously, it would have been an argument to have. IVF would have definitely been outlawed because they make babies to destroy. That's just the way it was. But it isn't that way anymore. So we don't have to worry about IVF. We don't have to worry about women being prosecuted. It's really the people who are making money from the destruction of human life that would be the only ones prosecuted. There are doctors that say a fetus should have no rights at all, and that only the mother's well-being, however she determines that well-being to be, she's the only one with rights. I couldn't disagree more. I think that in God's wisdom and His grace, He gave us plenty of examples about babies that were fully interactive with their environment. I mean, we think about John the Baptist. He leaped in his mother's womb when Mary came into the house, and he heard Mary's voice. We think about Jacob and Esau fighting in the womb. There are plenty of examples that God endowed those people with the right to life. And for us to snuff it out is just wrong. It's just wrong for us to agree that that's okay for any reason. And it's so arbitrary. There are some pro-lifers who believe that in case of rape or incest or fetal anomaly, we should make exceptions in the law, that we shouldn't ban abortion for those cases. I have to come back to the very same premise I started with, and even though we're in church and I can say it's because of the principle of Omega Dei, that it's God in us, even if you're secular humanist, the baby that has been created by a fertilized egg has all the blueprint within that little bundle that it will have all of its life. It's the same person. And embryologists have designated the time that when that sperm enters and it starts splitting, and as soon as those genes are divvied up, it's a new person. And I think that when we look at legislation, we need to correctly interpret legislation to say this is a person, and we need to protect that person's right to life. Now, here in New Hampshire, we had a Life Begins at Conception Act, introduced this time by J.R. Hole, last time by Warren Groen. Thank you very much, representatives. We appreciate that. It got voted down, however, even by some pro-lifers who didn't understand. What's not to understand? Life begins at conception. It's very simple. It didn't outlaw anything. It wouldn't take away anyone's rights except the right to kill that baby, which is illegal in a lot of places. New Hampshire is one of the worst. But when we have this kind of a bill, I hope that everyone would rally around and tell their legislators, we want to at least endow that person with the title personhood. Even if we can't repeal the abortion laws right now, I don't see that happening right away. Pandora's box, I said, is open. I mean, we have, in New Hampshire, we have abortion on demand for any reason at any time, no matter what. Does not matter why. Any reason, anytime. And I think that's a terrible disgrace. And at least if we could put it in the statutes that we agree that a person is a person, no matter how small, that we will foster at least a respect for those lives, if not put such a stigma on the abortion as a way of controlling those lives that would make it unthinkable. I pray that we can make it unthinkable. I have a little pamphlet here. It's the Human Life Amendment. It's old, but if y'all wanted any of them, I could order them for you. It delineates all of these questions that I just answered for you about the Human Life Amendment. Sanctity of Life Act is coming up nationally. That'll be up in a few weeks to a few months. They haven't really set a date for it, but it's the same thing. Life begins in conception. It is the paramount right to life of our time. It's the civil rights fight of our time. Now, I love the things that Martin Luther King Jr. said about being peaceful and productive and moving forward, but not being silent at all. And I think we all need to do that in whatever way we can. And so when you hear of the Sanctity of Life Act, make sure you tell your legislators, we want that. All it says is, we believe that a baby is a baby, no matter how small, and we want to convey personhood to that little person from conception to natural death. I don't want anybody's personhood taken away, and I think that you don't either. And I'm open to questions. Thanks. Yes, Joan?
Have any states passed personhood?
Have any states passed personhood? There are a number of states that are actually looking at that. Mississippi, Arizona, Georgia. They haven't come to the point where they've passed it. And Arizona, they actually have a bill up, but it has exceptions in it. And exceptions for rape, incest, and fetal anomaly, again. So they're basically saying, I'm an elitist, I can decide who's deserving of the right to life and who's not. And there are pro-life organizations that are backing these bills with exceptions. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
I remember the night of Columbus, and I noticed that since they've had the ultrasound machines in every state, they spent $26 million and then brought down the abortion way down and pro-life way up. You've heard about that recently?
Yes, he's saying that the invention of ultrasound has brought abortions down and pro-life up. Mm-hmm. Oh, thank you. I love ultrasounds. I think they're awesome. I know some people are afraid that the x-rays would be bad for the babies, but we've had so many babies with ultrasounds already. I think the technology is getting better, not worse. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
What about the pain law with fetuses that was out about a month ago? The Senate didn't bring it up, the House.
It was the Pain Capable Unborn Protection Act that he's talking about. Unborn Child Protection Act, sorry. And that was a 20-week ban on abortion because scientists have found that at about 20 weeks is the most intense the nerves are for that little baby. They're the most raw and they have the most feeling at that time. And so what they wanted was for a ban at that point. And there were exceptions to that bill for rape and incest, specifically targeting minor children who'd been raped. So we're talking about trafficking victims, putting a big target on their backs. But the other thing is, if a woman is over 20 weeks pregnant, remember I told you that quickening, when she can feel the baby, is usually between 16 and 18 weeks. So she knows this little baby's kicking inside of her. If she's that desperate to get an abortion at 20 weeks, does anyone really believe that she wouldn't say she was raped in order to procure that abortion? It's an out. It's not a real safety net at all. Did you have any other questions?
Why did they not vote for it?
They pulled it down, and they pulled it down because this is the official reason, is that Miss Elmers from South Carolina, I believe, said that she didn't want rape victims to have to report the rape. Now, in the bill, I read it numerous times, all it said was that the rape had to be reported prior to the abortion procedure. That's it. It didn't say to whom. It did say to officials. So it had to be somebody in the officials, the government or in law enforcement. But it didn't say who, it didn't say when, and it didn't say by what means. So it didn't say whether or not it could be a phone call at the abortion clinic by the girl counseling the woman to have an abortion. Why wouldn't that work? Well, let's just say you were raped. Okay, it's just one phone call. All she has to do is say she's raped. They do the abortion, they make their money, send the woman on her way. That's why it was officially taken off the docket. They said they're going to bring it back. It wasn't up for a full vote, and they did say they were going to bring it back. I wrote an open letter to Miss Elmers, specifically because the way that the wording was, it was targeting trafficking victims, and Miss Elmers had just passed a law to help protect trafficking victims in her state. So I felt like it was a real conflict for her to say, on one hand, we want to protect trafficking victims. Oh, but no, we want to hand them over to the abortion industry on the other hand. So I made sure she knew it. I sent it to all of her offices, and I published it as an open letter to numerous people. Any other questions? Are there any other questions particular to personhood and what it means? We get it, right? We get it. Well, we just did. That's what I was talking about when I said the Life Begins at Conception Act. It was voted down. We just voted it down in New Hampshire last 2 weeks ago. Was it 2 weeks ago? Yeah. It was House Bill 194. New Hampshire Right to Life will make known all of the people who voted for it and all of the people who voted against it. New Hampshire Right to Life Political Action Committee has put out booklets to let our legislators know what they would be required to get an endorsement from New Hampshire Right to Life, and basically they have to be 100% pro-life. And so if any of our endorsed candidates voted against it, we will be making a big stink of it.
Well, was that the one Kurt introduced? What's the one that Kurt introduced that got defeated?
I didn't bring that list with me.
Okay.
I don't remember.
Kurt introduced one bill and it got defeated.
I think it was about viability, but I'm not 100% sure on that. I know Keith Murphy did one on viability too. This one was introduced by J.R. Hull. There were a lot of co-sponsors on these bills too. So your representatives might have co-sponsored the bill, but the person who introduced it is the one who takes the brunt of the action. Are there any other questions? I really appreciate y'all listening. I feel like personhood can be so mucky, but when we're in church, it's just real simple, and I thank you for getting it. Thank you, and please help us hold our legislators accountable for getting it. Thank you. Thank you.
Wow, thank you so much, Darlene. This Respect Life series we started last year in May, and we've just been truly blessed with so many wonderful speakers last year, and we've got a great lineup of speakers this year, and it's all for life. And And that's what we're all here for. These talks are on YouTube, and we want to reach beyond our church walls. We want to be able to reach many other people so that they can learn and see what kind of programs that the Catholic Church and other organizations have to help women and families that are in need. We've just truly been blessed. I want to thank Father Tom Frank again for giving us a wonderful pro-life Mass today. I do have a couple of notes I wanted to bring up. The U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops has named March 25th the Day of the Unborn, the solemnity of the Annunciation of the Lord. So it's a day to unite and pray for life. Their motto is, each of us is a masterpiece of God's creation. Also, I mentioned this last time, I wanted to remind everybody about the New Hampshire Safe Haven Law, which is Title X, Public Health Chapter 132. So it's temporary care and control of newborn babies at a hospital or safe haven. This has been in since June of 2003. New Hampshire has had this safe haven law, which was instituted for women who would give birth but could not take care of the child. That gives a safe alternative to abortion. So it's a great law here in New Hampshire. Also, I wanted to remind everybody about the recruiting letter for the New Hampshire Guild of Catholic Healthcare Professionals. Maria Stemplinski, who's part of the Gianna Care Center, and others have put together this program in New Hampshire to get healthcare professionals together who are for life, and they can bring that culture into our healthcare programs. So if anybody has questions, I don't have any brochures today, but please feel free to, if you know anybody who's a healthcare professional, it'd be a great organization for them to get involved in. Also, we will have a basket in the back, a Goodwill offering basket for the Pentecost Pregnancy Center. They do wonderful work out there, Marching for Life and sidewalk counselors. They do a lot for them. And please join us in the back for a conversation. Thank you, everyone, for coming, and I look forward to next month.